It's about 7 figures. It's a little over 7 figures a month right now. Let me tell you how much I was charging these folks for over 100 courses, $7 a month. It was a self-worth thing, and I didn't understand how much I was worth at that point. I think in those moments, we need to really think about the people we're here to serve and just stop feeling so sorry for ourselves.
This is the Content Capitalists Podcast. We talk to business owners who've used video to grow their businesses to $1 million a year or more. How they did it, what worked, what didn't. Welcome to the Content Capitalists with your host, Ken Okazaki.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast. Today I've got a special guest with me, and if I'm honest, I've been kind of stalking her because every time I get alerts on my feed that she's live, I got to peek in, like if I have a moment, right? And she brings the energy, she brings the fire, and she's got an amazing audience and an amazing business. Guys, please welcome Martha Krejci as today's guest for the podcast. Martha, welcome to the show.
Oh man, thank you so much. I am beyond stoked to do this today and to meet you. Like we hang around in the same circles and stuff, and now we get to meet, and this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, this is gonna be so much fun. And I know that you work with a lot of people from like many different ranges of previous success, and you're helping them make a lot of money online, and that's exciting because I think, you know, recession, global weirdness in 30 different versions, you know, in the past 3 or 4 years. And I think people are looking for some kind of stability financially, and you've hit not just a nerve, but also a solution that's, you know, proven to be working. And you're broadcasting that using social media. You know, it's a great combination. And I've seen a lot of people do this, but few people do as well as you. And I think you're going to agree with me, right?
Yeah.
I love your smile. By the way, guys, if you're listening to the podcast and you're not seeing who this person is, she looks like she's in front of an Instagram, you know, background. She's got, you know, all that, a little bit of green and some books, and it just looks very aesthetically pleasing. Martha, what I want to do is, first of all, could you explain to all the listeners, you know, Cliff Notes, what's your business? What do you do? And like how much money is actually like flowing through, you know, all the deals you're making and stuff like that?
Yeah. First, I want to clarify, it looks very pretty behind me, but what you don't see are piles. So there's piles of things. So I just want to clarify that for the folks. It ain't really clean. It's just piles of chaos. So there's that. You don't have to be perfect by any means. So we'll talk about money first, and then we can talk about backstory, because I know people are first interested in money. We make, it's about 7 figures. It's a little over 7 figures a month right now. And that is via the things that we sell, you know, info products, coaching, and that sort of thing. And then a lot of it is also affiliate marketing and any sort of referral deals that I do as well. And so really, my whole goal, what I really love to do is I love to be able to link arms with other people and to refer off good business to other people. And so folks will come to me and say, like, who are you using for X, Y, and Z? Or who are you using for this? Or who do you suggest for this? And then I just refer off to the best person that I know of. And then that also is another way to generate income. And, you know, if you develop a really good reputation, you could make a living just on doing that alone.
Hey, when you said that, I realized after this, you and me need to have a chat, because if you love doing referrals, then I love working with people who do referrals. So let's chat after this podcast.
Heck yeah, man. I think we're talking tomorrow night. I think.
We are, actually. We are.
See? We'll talk about it.
Maybe there'll be a podcast part 2 where we reveal all the amazing things that happened as a result of that.
Ooh.
Maybe. Tune in, guys.
Maybe.
Comment below if you want that, a part 2.
There it is.
All right, back to you.
So, okay. So backstory is, okay, Martha, did you have the proverbial silver spoon, right? And the silver spoon doesn't mean you necessarily were born with money, but it means you were born with contacts, or you already knew people that knew people. And, you know, some people are just very lucky and they're born into that situation. And I've got no hate for them at all. It's just what they were born into. They have their own problems as well, I'm sure. But I was not born into any of that. So I was born into low, mid-level income parents. They both worked for the state. I grew up on a farm in central Illinois. They made sub 40 grand a year. And
is that a combined income or individually?
that was individually. One was a little less than 40, and then one was closer to 30.
Yeah. So at the time, because I think you're probably, well, this is
I'm 42.
Guessing a woman's age is scary. Okay.
Yeah.
We're exactly the same. That's right. We're the same age. 1980, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So back then, when your parents were that age, was that like in the US? Because I'm from Japan, even though I sound American. Was that below or above like the national average for salaries?
It was mid-range. So it was below where we were. It was below. So we weren't, we had a very inexpensive house. There was a lot of we didn't have a lot of extra money to spend, because it was all being spent on bills and things like that. And my mom wouldn't necessarily love me saying this, but she had a spending issue. And so that kind of ate into what was there anyway.
Okay. So it's hard to, you're right, it was more month than money, right?
That's it. That part.
Got it. So when you grew up, do you remember feeling poor? Like you go to school and you see your friends, they got the newest, Nikes or something, and you're wearing, something else that.
Yeah. The old school British Knights.
Like, was that a thing as you grew up?
Yeah. I remember asking my parents, and now my daughter asks me, and I'm like, don't ask me that. But I remember asking my parents if we were wealthy at all, like if we had money, because I didn't know. You don't know as a kid. Like, you just know your circumstances and that, like, you're not getting the cool stuff, but you don't know if your parents are just being jerks or if you literally don't have the money to get the stuff. And so there was always promises of going to Disney World, which when you're in central Illinois, it takes a good amount of money to get to Disney World and stay there. Like, it's here, it's down the street. We now live in Orlando. It's weird how your life works out whenever you value certain things. But then it was always the promise of, we'll go to Disney World, we'll do that. And then it just never happened. And I don't think it's because they didn't want to follow through on their promise. They didn't have the income, and they didn't know how to make the money. So my mom would get an extra job, and, like, it was just, people were working. They were working all the time. And we weren't making ends meet. So.
Got it. I had no idea until I became an adult that my parents were so dirt poor growing up. I had no idea. Like, they were dirt poor, but they did a good job of helping us to not worry about it. That was interesting. Now they're both doing pretty well. My dad started his own businesses, and it's all good. But as a kid, it's hard to get perspective, and I never bothered to ask them. It wasn't a thing for me because I didn't wonder. Super interesting. Now, do you remember, like, right now, if people go look you up on social media, they're going to see, in your group, you've got, many, many people who follow you. You've got, content across all platforms practically daily, like a lot. And people might look at that and you just spilled the beans that you're making over 7 figures a month. And for somebody else, I'm going to say 99% of the people listening are going to be like, I don't know if I could do that. I'm not at that level of success. So what I'm trying to do here is bridge the gap from you just getting started to kind of connect the lines to how you got to where you are. Do you remember the first time you had to go live or record a video or maybe even speak on a public stage? Let's revisit that. As painful and cringy as it may be, I want to do this because, the struggle is real. The story is real. And everything you experienced up until this point is what made you who the heck you are today. And that's the real story that people want to hear.
Yeah. Well, I've gone through some different iterations of my live video, because live video is typically my medium of choice. And I've gone through some iterations, and I feel like these are little benchmarks that maybe everybody hits as a coming of age. The very first one I was so quiet. And also, like, these are veneers, and I didn't have my new teeth then, and my teeth used to be real jacked. And so, like, I went live even then. That it was something that, like, in the back of my mind, I was like, do I want to show up on video? You know, people are going to see this, but I did anyway. So there's that. I remember I would, I would speak really softly, and that's when I sort of, I talk like I'm on stage all the time. So like I have a stand-up desk, and I'm always kind of like walking around. This is just what I do. But I remember I was sitting in my little chair, and it wasn't a little chair, it was a normal chair, but I was sitting in my chair, and it was like the epitome of meek and quiet and sort of like not yet fully empowered. You know, like whenever I look at those videos, I'm like, oh, poor Martha, you're okay. But it was those things I knew. Even in those moments, I knew that I had heard people say, if you keep doing it over and over and over again, you're going to get used to it, and you're going to find your flow. And so I trusted that. I just trusted that that was the truth. And so I kept doing it. That was my very first part of my video thing. Then I started this thing where I got a teleprompter, you know, one of the apps, the teleprompter apps. And we even got the little the little screen, we got all the gadgets, gizmos, and everything, right?
I'm actually looking through a teleprompter screen right now, so I could look at you right in the eye.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because I want to have eye contact. I found the tiny aside thing, not to distract you from the main story. The view rate on videos goes up a lot. I'd say between 10 to 20%. Just between 2 millimeters of looking at the lens or looking at the screen right below the lens, which is usually where the webcam is. So if you're a data nerd or if you're a video engagement nerd, then teleprompter is a good investment. A couple $100 and you'll fix that problem.
Oof. Boom. There you go. You should drop a link. Okay. Drop a link for that teleprompter. But I also love affiliate marketing. I think we talked about that. That's why I'm joking and telling him to drop a link, because it's when we talk about things, let's share those things and, you know, all of that. Anyway,
there will be a link below.
There is. So I did the teleprompter thing, and then I started to realize that I lost myself in the talking, because I would type out all the words I was going to say, and then I talk, and you probably already noticed, I'll talk really fast and then I'll stop, and then I'll start talking again and then I'll stop. But a teleprompter don't wait for nobody. So it keeps going the whole time. And so like I started panicking. I had to stop doing the teleprompter. And then I started writing out the teleprompter stuff on paper. Like I was reading it. I don't know what was going on. And then what I do is I have a title to my video. I know where I'm going. I know my content. I know how to land the plane. And I have my title, and that's all I have now.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I was just watching this in-depth video on YouTube, and I'm going to drop the link below. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but his videos average about 500,000 views, and he just teaches practical things about entrepreneurship and video. And one of the things he said is before shooting the video, before doing anything, him and his producer will brainstorm. And he said this is the hardest work they do, is the title of the video and the thumbnail. The thumbnail is going to be fully designed before they shoot one frame of the video, because that makes more difference in the engagement than any other bit. And I was like, that's next level shit right there. I didn't even think of, I thought of titles, but not thumbnails before the video. And he says, because if the more people see the thumbnail and they, and this is kind of related to titles, because, you come up with that first, but especially on YouTube, if they feel a close connection between the thumbnail and what you're actually doing, then they're going to feel like they got what they came for. But a lot of people will shoot the video, then they'll embellish the thumbnail to make people want to click it. And then they might click it, but then they're not going to watch through because it's not what they're expecting. So you make the thumbnail, embellish it all you want, and then make sure you include that in the video, and then you're good. So I was like, that is brilliant. It's like, and I got to drop a link below. Martha, What were you doing when you first made video? Were you trying to sell something like a webinar? Were you selling a physical product? Were you just saying hello world? What made you, get the urge to get in front of the camera, shy little girl, hit record or live in your case? What was that?
It was affiliate marketing. So that
Okay.
was the first thing. That was what brought me to the game in the first place. I thought it was much easier to sell other people's stuff because I was a salesperson by nature, right? Like I've got a strong sales background. But I was like, well, I could sell some other people's stuff and not have to sell my own. And so that's I remember one of the first videos was it was Brunson's book. It was the first one. Is that
.com secrets?
.com secrets? Yeah, yeah. So that was
Wow.
one of my first ones.
So you're already in the internet marketing world, like for a while, because .com secrets was what, like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Like it was a while ago, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that was your introduction,
Uh-huh.
and then I do remember he did the big launch push, and there was a leaderboard and everything. And at the time, it's interesting you bring that up. At the time, the person who won first place, do you remember who it was?
Was it
the
Stu?
affiliate contest? No.
I don't know.
First place, he got a life-size Iron Man suit made. That was a part of the deal, and Porsche Cayenne.
Who was it?
It was my client at the time, and I helped him with the push.
Stop it!
Yeah, Peng Joon.
Peng Joon. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Well, of course it was
first
Peng
place. And we had just launched his video campaign. He's just like, Ken, no one's heard of me in the US. Like I'm pretty big in Malaysia, but no one's heard. And I want to blow this thing up. What do we do? And I said, we got to do tons of video. And then he goes, can we do like how much can we do? How much is a lot? And I said, I don't know. Like we could do maybe like 6 an hour if we really push it. And he goes, great. And then he does some math and he goes, so in 3 days, let's do like 120. I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, so we did it, and that was, and a lot of those videos organically got like, I think the top one got like 14 million views. And then the ones toward the bottom were like, 100,000 is like, just cleaning up the scraps. But after that, he went and got first place. Of course, he did his own thing, writing his list and everything. But I'm very, very
You're like an integral part of that.
in that same contest vicariously.
That's awesome.
Well, look, this is on record, and I want to be careful not to say anything that can be misconstrued. It was definitely Peng Joon. I happened to be the guy helping him with video at the time, and we created all the video together. So that's the most accurate representation I can think of. But yes, a lot of fun. And did you rank on there at all? As far as like, do you remember how many books you got out?
Oh no, I don't remember. It was like 50 or something. It was when I was first starting.
Okay. Well, baby steps, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was absolute baby steps. And then I kind of worked into some different affiliate stuff utilizing ClickFunnels, and then had some video. And then GoDaddy ended up sponsoring a event for me. Like I had 100 women where I locally was in Iowa at that point. And I rented a hotel and had 100 women come for an entire day. And GoDaddy paid for all of their tickets, which was awesome. And so then it was an affiliate event because I taught these women how to be able to do email marketing and how to do all of these different things, and then utilize the softwares that I was suggesting to utilize via free templates and giveaways. So it was just like, crazy time.
Yeah. Now, when you got started, let's go back to that first thing with Russell Brunson again. Were you already making a pretty decent living off of your business, or were you still just like in startup trying to figure out how things work?
I was off of my business because my business was an SEO agency. So I came from GoDaddy, worked for GoDaddy for a little over 5 years, got into leadership, realized that I was good at SEO. Like I have a weird understanding of SEO. Like I understand a Google algorithm change before they mention that it's been changed. And so like, it's just a thing. And so whenever I quit my job, I initially started the SEO agency. And so that was fine. That I immediately, I got a membership at the Chamber of Commerce, and then did some trainings there, and then businesses hired me, and financially, we didn't even skip a beat. So it was just like, I just began to take off. That was the beginning of when I wanted to do things for me. So I was doing things for other businesses. And then I decided like, but I have a voice and I have a perspective and I have something I want to say. And so that's when I started doing stuff for me.
Okay. Got it. And then that's when you went into the social media / online space, started promoting. First video was Russell Brunson's .com secrets. And now we're going into getting sponsorship from GoDaddy. Super good idea. Going back to your past contacts, getting sponsorship from them. And that's, it's a well-known name. I think I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to URLs. So my GoDaddy account, every time I think I have a good idea.
How many do you have?
Oh gosh, I don't know, probably 250 or something, I'd guess. Maybe. I don't know.
325. But it's a I understand.
We should do, how on TikTok there's this thing where people stop people on the street and they say, "What's your body count?" And they look all embarrassed. It should be, "Hey, what's your body count on GoDaddy?" People just like, "Oh."
I just bought 2 more today. So like it's just an everyday thing for me. I'm like, oh, I need that one.
But I let a lot of them go. I feel like if I haven't done anything with them in a year, then I'll let them go,
There's some I keep. I have like carswithoutcredit.com. I have cheapvegasweddings.com. I don't know. My friend of mine.
I had this idea for reality TV show around the world where people go like scavenger hunting. And so I got every major city in the world: Tokyo for real.com, New York for real.com, London for real.com, because I thought that my YouTube channel was going to blow up and then people are going to want to franchise this model. And then I never got the first video up.
The video guy.
Well, other things made more money.
I trust me, I get that.
All right. So you've got something going on right now where people are paying for your courses and your coaching. When did that get started?
2017. 2017 is when all of that started. And even when all of that started, it has still sort of like grown and molded and sort of like, changed form and changed shape and whatever. But yeah, I started creating courses in about 2017.
Do you remember your first course? What was the big promise?
I never had my first courses weren't big. They were all small and then they were put into a membership. So they were all like 27, 37. I don't remember what the first one was though, because we made like something like 128 of them in a very short amount of time. So I don't remember which the first one was.
So how do you produce 128 courses? Like, do you just have someone sitting there with a camera saying, "What about this? What about that?" And you just record answers? Or did you like properly outline everything? And,
I outlined them. Yeah. Cause I had to learn all of this. Like, so at GoDaddy, there's a lot of stuff that I just had a good working knowledge anyway of like reality, because at that point in time you were seeing a lot of dude bros on the front of Ferraris, and it was kind of like, that's not real. Like the things that they were teaching weren't real. And so I knew a lot of like, okay, here's what really works instead. And then and so I would just go with the questions that people asked me the most, and I would create courses so people would be like, well, how do I create a YouTube channel? Okay, well, here's a course, like pop that out. My husband's actually the YouTube guy, right? So he actually created that video, or that course, excuse me. And, then it would be like, how do I set up my Facebook business page? What are the settings that should be on there? So they would be very small things, but they made a lot of sense whenever they all lived together in a membership. And they also made a lot of sense as low cost lead generating things too at that time. So picked up a lot of SEO just on that.
So what I understand is you're making like a whole bunch of like 20-ish, $30-ish courses. And after they buy that course, then you sell them into the membership where they could get a whole lot more of the same.
Yep. And then they had the option for like coaching as well if they wanted the coaching. So
okay. And how much was the membership?
The membership. Can we talk about worth for a second?
We're going to get there. Because first, before we brag about everything, which we will, I got to get people to realize we all have humble beginnings. I mean, everybody has humble beginnings.
Let me tell you how much I was charging these folks for over 100 courses and I think it was 1 hour a week of Q&A where I would literally like go over their stuff with them, right? $7 a month.
Yeah, that sounds pretty low. And what would that
It's really low.
like where'd that number come from?
I don't know. It was a self-worth thing. It was like, how much will someone pay for me to help them? And I didn't understand how much I was worth at that point. And so
Even after doing a sales stint at GoDaddy and like I'd imagine that was pretty good commissions plus base, right?
oh yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe what it is, and here's just my guess, is you had the backing of a big brand then, and then you felt like your brand was pretty small, and that kind of deflated your confidence potentially.
Yeah. Well, and whenever you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of social proof. And so you can't lean on people saying, yeah, you know what you're talking about. Yeah, and still the biggest sales days that we have, they're all good sales days, right? But you'll see peaks when somebody posts a testimonial and says like, blah, 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 like this is what I got out of this and blah, blah, blah. You'll see peaks because that's somebody they're able to say like, oh, okay, so this person got X, Y, and Z out of this. But when you don't have that social proof and when you're just starting on the course world, I guess, then it was kind of like, the movie Catch Me If You Can, like you are who you say you are. It was kind of like that, right? And it's like, you got to believe me that I know what I'm talking about. So that's where I was.
But do you believe that like some of the people who bought that $7 course, do you believe that you put some goodwill out there and that helped you to, number one, gain confidence and practice, number two, gain a bit of a fan base that, people will say, hey, these people listen to her, so maybe I should too, right? Like those are things we can't deny, even though, it might not be the price point that you were hoping for when you started.
Yeah, exactly. That's and I still have a low cost membership. So it's not $7. It's not $7, but it's a low cost membership and it's for that purpose. It's to be able to have massive impact, massive help. And then that's the whole point of it.
I think a lot of people are going to appreciate hearing this. Sometimes I get software. It doesn't happen as often as it used to because I think, the internet is maturing a lot more, but you download some software like a Chrome plugin or, some utility and it's free. And then this pop-up comes up and say, would you buy me a coffee? And there's a $5 tip jar, I'm like, I would give you a lot more than that. But the highest I can click here is like $50, and, that's with their stretch goal, like maybe someone's going to pay $50 for this software. But a lot of times I don't pay anything because frankly, I'm just busy and I move on. I don't have to pay in order to use it. So, but if they did have a pay gate, it would be a no-brainer. It'll take me 30 extra seconds to fill in my credit card info and I'd be out. So guys, if you're listening and you feel like, why would anyone pay me more? I think that listening to Martha, what she just said here, maybe it's okay for the stage you're at. Don't worry, and then develop your skills. Your confidence will follow. Income follows that too. I've seen this pattern over and over. Now, let's move on to the next stage. You've got these $7 memberships, $20 to $30 courses, and how did that develop into? What was there a kind of a stage between that and where you're at now, or did that kind of directly morph into this?
It morphed into this. We had a really big spike whenever I created a course for network marketing. It's basically all the stuff that I teach anyway, but I always kind of laughed at network marketing stuff and I was like, that's adorable. But there was a friend of mine who ended up getting me in and I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. And then I just tried my content strategy that I always do anyway. In network marketing, I'm like, what the hey, why not? And I hit a rank that typically takes 4 to 5 years, and it took me 6 months. And so whenever I had that proof, then and it was obvious proof because I was winning prizes and trips to Hawaii and all sorts of stuff. And then the whole company, and it was one of the biggest network marketing companies there is. I got a massive spike from that entire company coming in and getting courses, and that course was like a 6-figure a month course for a very long time until I left the company. But that was where I got a huge injection of audience. Now, not all of that audience is still there because I had to leave that company because another company asked me to do their training and blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't be in another company. But whenever I left that company, they were kind of like, you're a traitor. There's a weird network marketing culture.
I've been in those circles. It's a different world, and you just have to.
It's weird, isn't it?
Well, they got to protect their interests, but literally they got to build cult-like followings for loyalty, because every new company or new policy that somebody else is doing could steal your user base or your sales team, right? And it's scary for them too, I can imagine. So that's interesting. Who you remind me of is Robert Kiyosaki, because his book, like I was having a long time ago, I was helping him with some of his videos, and I did host some events here in Japan and stuff. But his book Think and Grow Rich, when he first made it, not Think and Grow, sorry, Rich Dad Poor Dad, I got that mixed up. He had printed a batch of 5,000 of these books, and they arrived at his house. He stuck them on a pallet in his garage. He had to park his car out front and stuff. And he thought, because he wrote a great book, it's going to sell. And nobody was buying it, like nowhere, like for almost a year. And then his friend, who owned a car wash business, said, hey, I'll just stick, he asked him, could you stick a few of these books like on your checkout counter? Maybe someone's going to buy it. You know the story?
No, I'm not.
But you know the book though, right? And Robert Kiyosaki, right?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happens is some stranger, after like 2 months of nobody buying the book, just buys one, for $5. And Robert's calling him. It's like, who was it? I need to know who bought the book. Who bought the book? And the guy's just like, I don't know. Just some dude just came by and bought the book. And then the next day, he comes back again, buys the rest of the 4. So he's gone from 5,000 books to 995 books, right? So he's excited, but someone bought 5. He's just like, oh my God. And then he gets a phone call the next day. He says, hey, I got your book, and I got your contact information in the back. I think, he goes, I think what you have is going to be great for my company. And he's thinking, my company, what is this, right? He goes, would you come and speak to my audience about this? And Robert's just like, well, how big is the audience? He's like, we're expecting like 5,000 people. And he says, I'll do it if you buy 1 copy of the book per audience member.
Yeah. Except for 5.
And that was Amway.
Oh.
And that's how he got, his big exposure started, was with a network company with a big loyal audience and a sales leader who wanted to help his audience. And then there's Oprah, and the rest is history. So that was really interesting. These guys they have tremendous influence. And if you're on the right side of the right people, as a lot of people knock them. It's not my thing anymore. I was in it. I've rehabilitated. It just wasn't my thing. I have a lot of friends who are still inside different organizations, but it's amazing what can be done when you really take good care of your audience, and they know, like, trust, and pay money to you. It's absolutely a phenomenal business model.
Yeah. My whole thing is I was serving them in a way that like their own leadership wasn't serving them, that they couldn't serve them because they didn't understand the marketing concepts that I understood from a content marketing standpoint. So right, they were doing like in-home parties and stuff. So I just came on with the messaging of, hey, I don't know about you, but I'm not making cookies and lemonade for people to come to my house. I'm not. It's not who I am. I'm an introvert. I like to be at home by myself staring at the wall. Like, that's what I want. And I would love to build a business, but I can't build a business if it's going to require me inviting people to my house all the time. It's not going to happen. So I tried to do this other thing. And whenever it hit, that's where other people are like, I'm like that. Like, I think everybody on the planet would probably do network marketing if they didn't have to have their face on it. That's what I'm working on.
That's notable and quotable.
That's literally what I'm working on right now.
What do you think of these faceless YouTube channels? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of people advertise, because they hit that nerve, just like I would say a lot of things. But then you got internet trolls who never show their face and they just do trolling activity, right? So there are things people would do if they can't show if they don't have to show their face. But that's an interesting phenomenon.
I think faceless YouTube channels and faceless media in the first place, it can be done well as long as it's done under the premise that it's an amalgamation or an organization of tools and resources instead of a brand that speaks.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, do you remember, was there a certain point in your trajectory? There's two things I want to address here. One of them is imposter syndrome. Everybody faces it, but I want to know about your story behind that. And number two is, do you remember a point where there was like a hockey stick trajectory where you started really seeing things go from, wherever you were before to now 7+ figures a month? Let's do it in that order. Imposter syndrome. Do you have it? Did you have it? How do you deal with it?
I always have it. I think that everyone who is not an imposter will always have imposter syndrome. An imposter won't. So when you do have it, you're okay. But I think that's just our reptilian minds. Is to keep us safe, keep us, the reticular activating system is like, yeah, but you grew up this way, but this is the life that you knew for 30+ years, and there's that you're kind of, if you're not diligently reprogramming that, and even when you are, but especially if you're not diligently reprogramming that, then you're constantly at odds with you of today or you of 3 years from now and you of, 10 years ago. It's like the two just they don't recognize each other. And so you have to be striving and stepping into this person. And instead of going back in a weak way, I'm just going to say it, because whenever I do it, I know I'm weak in those moments where I'm like, oh, I really am just not, I don't know. I'm just not really a big deal. I'm kind of just feeling crappy about myself today. And maybe I'll just stay in bed. And I don't know. There are some days where you just kind of get that way. And then what helps me in those moments, because it happens, I don't know, I would say three times a year, maybe 3-4 times a year. Maybe it's a quarterly thing, but it happens, like not often, but like enough where you're like, oh, here we go again. All right, get my head straight again. Take your ashwagandha and like try to just get real with yourself. But I think what's important is that whenever we're in these moments of sort of like licking our wounds and feeling less than, and kind of like you kind of turn back into your preteen self, I think, of like, let the adults handle it thing. I think in those moments, we need to really think about the people we're here to serve and kind of just stop feeling so sorry for ourselves. Like this, I don't really coddle a whole lot. So like, we just need to stop feeling sorry for ourselves and show up for the people that need us, because the longer that we spend here feeling sorry for ourselves, like back in that space, those are moments that are people that need us, that need for us to be showing up every day. Those are moments that those people don't see us. And that means when they don't see us, then they don't have a file for what it looks like for them to be better. And so when we're missing those moments, that's like, you don't know how impactful that is on somebody's life. And so that's what I do whenever I get into those sort of like sad, lick my wounds moments. I had one not too long ago and I posted it on social media and I was like, hey guys, just letting you know, it was Sunday. I got home from church and I was just sad. Like it wasn't really about anything. I wasn't sad about anything. I was just kind of sad. And so I shared it on social media, not in a reason, like I wasn't looking for people to be like, oh, I'm so sorry for you. I was just saying like, hey, not everything is rainbows and unicorns. Like I show up happy most of the time, but I need you to understand it's not always like that. And so whenever it's not like that, here's what I do. And then I gave them, some ideas of what I was choosing to do to feel better. So there's that.
Got it. And when you share those things, that helps you like just forget imposter syndrome. It's no longer about you, right? It's about that person you're serving. You get into a different frame of mind, and yeah, you just don't. That's right. Like in this conversation right now, there is 99% of my brain is thinking, how can I ask a question in such a way so that Martha is going to tell an amazing story? And so that the listeners will continue listening for 10 more seconds, 20 more seconds, 30 more seconds, a minute, right? And that's literally what's going on in my brain. And I don't have time to feel embarrassed about my voice, or that the fact that I coughed on the camera or said the wrong name for the book recently. It's like, that's just, but previous me would have been just like, oh no, they're going to fact check me and I'm going to get hated and trolled on. And, I think that the percentage of that happening is much lower than people perceive it to be, simply because it stands out to you more, and it's like it disproportionately grabs more attention than everything else, and that's why it's more scary. Let's talk about that hockey stick curve. Where did you see the biggest like inflection point in progress? Because 7 figures a month is no joke. That's a lot. That's more than, like, you're in the 1% of the 1% probably when it comes to income. So was there a hockey stick moment, or has it all just been, a gradual, steady curve,
There were 2 hockey stick moments, and I'm going to talk about, there was the one where it was our first 7-figure month. There was that one, but that one was less momentous as the first one. So I want to talk about the first one, because the first one is when it was the very first time I hit 30K a month. And previously 30K, the previous year I had made $19,000 in a year. And so now this next year I'm making, a $30,000 month. And that was where, Mike and I looked at each other like, we're going to be okay. Like, it was one of those moments where, because you just struggle for so long, and you don't know if things are working. You have faith in yourself. You know that you're a smart person, but you're like, man, I'm doing these things and I just don't know. I don't know that it's really going to hit the way I want it to hit, And so that very first month where we hit 30K, it was a lot of, I remember we had this calendar on the wall, and it was, we would notch out every single day. So in order for a goal to actually be attained, you have to pay attention to the goal, right? And so every single day we put on our, what we made that day. So that's still something that I teach people. Put on what your call to action was that day, and then what you made also. So you know what really tripped the trigger of people. But anyway, so every day we were putting in the numbers, and we got to the 15th and we were at 15K on the 15th. And I was like, this is like where shallow breathing starts, because you're like, you're fighting your old self, right? Your brain is literally like, who am I right now? Like, my family, no one in my family has ever been able to make this amount of money. I have always been in my family like the kid that just wasn't going to amount to anything. I was just kind of like the joke. And so on the 15th, when it was at 15K, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Like, it's happening. And so then we kept going. On the 20th, we were at like 19K. So it was sub 20. And I was like, oh, just be 20. It's on the 20th. And then it kept going and it kept going. We got to the end of the month and it was 30K. And it was like, when I say like that we felt like we were going to be okay, there's only some people that are really going to get that feeling, that are going to be listening and be like, that's the feeling where you can like, let's start paying off some bills. Let's start paying down some stuff, because we don't need to do this because the way that we made this money is repeatable. And we know that this is because we've done it for a whole month, which, I mean, a whole month is really kind of nothing in the long term, right? But now we know repeatable behaviors that are working. And so then we just kind of added on to that. The next month was 45K. The next month was 65, I think, after that. And it just kind of kept going up. And then we introduced the HBR, Home-Based Revolution, like my signature program where I teach all of everything. And that month, the very first month of HBR, that was where we hit 7 figures a month. And it was crazy.
Let me ask you the $1 million question. So that first 30-day stint where you did $30,000, you said you're tracking what was the call to action that day and how much money. Do you remember what was was there any consistent pattern on these daily posts you're making that help bring in this, 30,000?
Yes. My biggest thing that brings in more money for me anyway is whenever I speak in front of other people's groups. So in network marketing, they all have their own teams. And so I would get in front of their teams and then I would give them a discount on the product or whatever. And then a ton of people would come in. There was one that I did must have been 6 months later or something. I went into this really big group and that was my first $50,000 day. And that was just from that group where I just did a 45-minute. It wasn't really even a webinar. It was just 45-minute. Here's what didn't work for me. Here's why this works for me. If you're like me, then this will probably work for you. It's half off. It's like $67. It was cheap, but that many people buying something equals 50K.
Absolutely. That is a huge advantage. And a lot of the speakers I've helped in the past, they built their entire multi-million-dollar career by speaking on other people's stages. I used to organize events here in Japan. We'd pay Tony Robbins $1 million a day to show up, and everybody else on the stage would pay us to show up. And that's
right.
And then that's how we got to pay him $1 million, So, that's just the industry, how it works. And it's a great model because you need the draw and you need the cash flow. It just works. Now let's talk about HBR. Home-Based Revolution. When you launched that was huge, right? What inspired you to do that? Now, I know that we're both in some of the same circles with some of the same educators and things like that. And you had shared about that transformation inside of there. And I remember that. And that's when I knew I've got to have Martha on the show. But I want to hear it straight from you, for this podcast and all the listeners here.
Yeah, it was COVID had just happened. We weren't thinking about even creating that program pre-COVID. It wasn't on our radar or anything. We were just we were doing what we were already doing and it was working really well. And, it was what it was. And then COVID happened. And I remember one of the days where it just got really quiet. You know how those really early, like in the first couple weeks of COVID, it's like everything got really eerily quiet. Kind of like nobody knew what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were actually, extras in a horror movie, it felt very just like, this is weird. And we're scared to breathe, did you wash the groceries off when they got here? And it's just like the weirdest thing. But I remember Mike and I were watching, and we never watched the news, right? But at that point we did because we didn't know what the heck was going on. It was like the closest thing to, I don't know, information we could get. And I remember we were both watching the news and we started seeing, I'm not going to cry right now, Ken. We started seeing the amounts of businesses that were closing. We were seeing the layoffs. We were seeing the economy come to sort of like a screeching halt, except it was like the train was right over the top of the families, is how it felt like to me. Because these families couldn't afford food now. They didn't have a job and they didn't have benefits, a lot of people that are in the service industry, the hospitality industry, whatever. They don't have those extra sorts of resources. And there's a lot of data to prove that most people don't even have an extra $200 in the good times, don't even have an extra $200 in their account just in case they have a flat tire or something. Like there's no wiggle room. And so we've taken millions of families with no wiggle room and we've removed their ability to create income. And we just looked at each other and had a moment of like, we know things that if other people knew, I really believe that they would be able to be okay through this. And so we got to work. Home-based, we knew was going to be the beginning of the program, home-based. And then I was like, I don't know what the last word is, like, I don't know what we're going to call it. Home base, I don't know. And then Mike just looked at me and he's like, it's a revolution. Like, this is, we have to make a change. Like, we have to choose something new because we just have to. And so that's where home-based revolution came from. And we got to work. We started, plotting it out, what the different modules are going to be and all of the things and the coaching and all of the everything. We started plotting it out and then we made it available for people. And it was a bomb rush through the door of that program. It was so absolutely needed. So yeah, that's the story of HBR.
I think this is one of the most dramatic COVID pivot stories, excuse me, that I've heard up until now. And you said before you're doing 30-ish K a month to 50 or so. And now you've jumped to about 7 figures. That's like a 20x ish like jump. That's called finding a unique need and having the perfect fit for it, because you don't scale that fast unless you've got really good intuition and timing and skill. It's like those three have got to be in place, and you absolutely smashed it. Now, I want to wrap this up. I want to respect your time. We've got just like 5 minutes left. And I want to ask you, if somebody hasn't, let's say they do have an online course or they want to launch one, like, HBR. And what do you advise people who feel like, video is not their thing, or they can't get in front of a live audience or record a course or whatever? Like, how do you help people like that? What's the mindset shift that you try to help people to just get them started?
Yeah. Again, I go back to bat signal, or the person that you're here to serve. I call it bat signal. So there's that needs to get you into movement. Now, there are some people who really don't do well on video. Some people don't, or I think eventually you would, but you don't want to, and whatever. And I say, just then, if you want to have somebody do voiceover, if you want to do voiceover and you just have slides in front of you, just get the content out. Just get the content out so you can help people. So I work with a lot of military, first responders, and people like that privacy is a number one thing for them and their families. They are not putting their face on anything because it's unsafe. And so there's still ways to be able to build your brand and to build your business without having your face on it. And so it's really just getting clear about, okay, the first and foremost thing is not to focus on the fear. The first and foremost thing is to focus on how are you going to serve? And then you can make anything happen. And how you want to serve, like, you can make it happen in any capacity. So if you don't want to be on it, then don't be on it. There's ways around that. But yeah, make it, I still do the thing though. Help the people out there because they need it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Now, this is, what I do, which is we produce video for, brands, mostly personality brands. And, recently we started taking on like just managing their social media and like growth hacking it. But I think a lot of people are wondering, like, when is it right to invest in it? Like, let's say I just got $1 million, like, is this too much car for me? Like, there's that question, right? But from your perspective, when is it appropriate for a business that's already up and running, right? They've got a few things figured out, but to hire out some professionals to help them with the creatives, social media, and things like that?
I think that it's your voice. I mean, it's how you're going to be seen. I have grown completely from organic stuff. So whether it be blogs or social media. And so this is the only place that I can come from with my answer is from what I know. But if I hadn't been, and I did my own stuff for a very long time, but you only do your own stuff so you know what you want your voice to be. But then what you need to do is you need to invest in somebody else to perfect that for you, because your job is the visionary. As the business owner, your job is the vision. Your job is to have the finger on the pulse of your people, finger on the pulse of your customers, your clients, your audience, whatever you want to call them. You need to know where they're at, where they're going, what are they looking for? Is there a branch in the road for them? Like, you need to be paying attention to them. And if you're focused on sort of like this task stuff to the side, you're not going to be able to do this. You can't do both. And so, not effectively. And so I think you do your own social media long enough to know what you want your voice to be. And then you pass it off to somebody else, like Ken, to be able to do the, actually perfect it. Because Ken, I enjoy you because you're so data driven. I love data. I love it when people aren't just like, you know what, this is going to work because I say this and because this looks like this. And so I'm going to do that. And instead it's like, okay, so what the numbers are telling us here, and that's the kind of stuff that matters. I mean, that everything else is kind of fluff. And so the industry, unfortunately, is full of a lot of, I'm going to use the word charlatans just because, again, I don't coddle. So it's full of a lot of charlatans that then you hire them and they fluff up your voice. They mess up your whole brand because they're like trying to speak for you, but they don't understand how to speak for you. So, I appreciate that you're a true professional in this.
Well, thank you for that. And I appreciate it. Now, Martha, we're coming to the end here, and I want to make sure that if anyone's listened to you so far and they are curious, like, what is this HBR thing? How do I get in on this? Martha, could you drop some access? Like, how can they find you if they want to get some help from you or learn from you or buy a book or something?
Yeah, right on. I have a book called The Home-Based Revolution. If you want to look that up, it's Barnes & Noble and all the places, Simon & Schuster. But there's that. You can go to withmartha.com. That's the easiest place. That's the hub. That's my website. If you want to talk about HBR, you can send a contact form there, or you can go to my Facebook business page. This is weird. I'm giving a lot of different CTAs, but
we'll put all the links down below so you could just click it instead of having to search, but they'll all be there.
You just message me on the Facebook business page and we can have a chat about HBR, because not everybody comes in, because not everybody's necessarily ready for it. But I want to make sure that you're going to be able to be successful before you come into it. So
perfect. Thank you so much, Martha. And if anyone else has listened all the way here to the end, then I think that you and me, Martha, have done a good job of capturing attention and telling us a great story that's got tons of value to it. And if you're curious about how it works with, our services with video content creation, production, and social media management, there's going to be a link down below too. Please check that out. Martha, any last words of wisdom before we hang up this call? Somebody they're just like, Martha, I want to be like you. You're a rock star. You're a health nut. You're beautiful. You're making a lot of money, and you got a gorgeous smile. Like, is there one thing that people should be focusing on to just get a little bit of that pixie glitter on them from you?
I think that what I'm lucky to do is I'm lucky to be able to truly be in service every day. And so the best advice I could give anybody is to truly determine what their bat signal is, who their person is that they're here to serve, and show up and serve that person day in and day out. There's nothing better than a life in service. So
perfect. Thank you so much, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Martha, thank you. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.